didn't see you there. How kind of you to drop in. As you can see, I've done my best to make my podcast more palatable.
What's happening, Hellspawn? Welcome back to another episode of Spawnography. It's me, one of your hosts, George Marston, pronouns they, them, or she, her. With me, as always, is...
Pierce Leiden, pronouns they, them. George, how you been? What have you been up to?
You know, not a whole lot this week, necessarily. I've been working on some music as usual. Let's see, my new band, we've been doing some recording, and I'm in the part where I'm like, kind of working on tracking the guitars for stuff that we're going to release.
Gotcha. And you just joined Nickelback, right?
You spoiled it. I was gonna let the fans hear it when we got in there, and I have to quit now. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm officially announcing my departure from Nickelback.
Well, this is an important episode for that reason.
I hate ladies and gentlemen.
What about ladies and gentle them?
Sure. The thing is...
What about ladies and germs?
Sure. I used to MC a lot of shows, and I trained myself out of saying ladies and gentlemen, and I would always make up some new thing like ghouls and goblins or whatever. I just, I think it's passé.
True. What a week it's been.
I know. I joined Nickelback and quit.
Right. That happened in the world.
It's been a lot. There have been some documents that have been released.
I mean, what's funny is this doesn't come out until December. So by the time that this comes out, maybe we'll find out that everything is true or that it's not true. Maybe it's not true. It feels true.
I've heard. Here's my opinion, and I'm going to say this. First off, I heard someone say that Bubba is the name of Ghislaine Maxwell's horse.
Which doesn't make anything better.
No, it makes everything worse. But here's the thing I'll say. You can build 1,000 bridges and suck one cock, and you'll be remembered as a cocksucker. And there is literally nothing funny or interesting or even notable or remotely offensive about two consenting adults engaging in a sex act. Probably the least offensive thing in 20,000 pages of the absolute scum of the fucking earth. The thing is, though, every time anyone thinks of the president from now on, they're going to think of him sucking Bill Clinton's dick. And...
it's pretty
whether
great.
They're going to be people who, there is a contingent of people who will immediately believe it no matter what is ever said about it. There will be a contingent of people who will never believe it no matter what is said about it. And most of the people will fall in the middle of yeah, I could believe it. I just need proof to commit. And the thing, though, is we're all thinking about it. And
which
I don't
terrible.
care if look, here's the thing. I don't care if a man, I think that the idea of being performing oral sex on a man is some sort of moral, there's an issue. There's no issue with it. It's the same as anything else. The thing that's funny, weird to me about it is how that is the thing that will break his mystique with the people who want him to be a strong man that takes what he wants by force. Part of the problem is idolizing people,
right,
putting them on pedestals, and
right.
Zoran Mamdani, hot politician of the moment, at some point he's going to have to deal with people and subjects and situations that his leftist supporters, probably us included, are going to be like, well, that's fucked up.
That shit sucks.
Fuck that guy for doing that.
Yeah.
Because that is the reality of being in that position because those halls of power are corrupt.
But also, too, because you and I do not idolize politicians, because we don't buy into a cult of personality,
right?
And because we go into it knowing, man, this guy's gonna fuck up.
They all have feet of clay.
This guy is going to disappoint me. This guy will not deliver on 100% of the things that he says he's going to deliver on because it's impossible. And we know that because we have a normal reaction to a politician kind of like rising in power. We are also going to go like, yeah, okay, I kind of expected that. We're not going to go like burn down Gracie Mansion because because the buses are $1 instead of $3. You know what I mean? Like instead of free. You know. So,
and like if he's adhering to his principles at the very least, as best as he can, like if he's suddenly like, actually, I love billionaires' money and Israel's my
that would
friend,
be different.
then,
that would be different. And
like,
in that case,
of which,
we would burn down Gracie Mansion.
Yes, and I was going to say, speaking of which, I heard that John Fetterman took a big fall and got really hurt.
Is the ground okay?
I was going to say, all jokes aside, our thoughts and prayers really go out to the sidewalk. This is one of the longest intros we've ever done. So, Pierce, hit me with those credits.
Well, maybe I will have to put a time stamp on this one. I won't. We're covering.
You know what? We will give a trigger warning for violence against women
and
throughout.
James Cameron and art. Violence against art, actually. No. We will give it a legitimate trigger warning for violence against women in this episode.
Yeah. So, without further ado, then.
Spawn number 132, Todd McFarlane Image Comics present Pratfall. Plot by Todd McFarlane and Brian Holguin. Story by Brian Holguin. Pencils by Angie Medina. Inks by Danny Miki. Victor Elizaba. Alan Martinez. Crime Lab Studios. Lettering by Tom Warzakowski. Colors by Brian Haberlin. Cover by the great Greg Capullo. Really, really, really cool Greg Capullo cover.
I'm looking at it. Oh, yeah.
It's really
It is really cool. That is kind of like a popular image.
It's really sick. And it's like inking that he's never really like kind of worked with before.
Very like flowy and creepy.
Yeah.
It's almost got like an Ashley Wood-esque flavor.
Yeah, totally. Which makes sense as this was published in 2003. So we open with
not the only Hellspawn comparison.
That's true. I mean, I do think that when we were reading Hellspawn and we weren't quite caught up to when those issues were coming out and where Spawn was, I think what's really interesting is that like it is clear that there was a lot of collaboration happening, at least some discussions happening, and the books are sort of trying to be in conversation with each other, even if
there's that squint and you can make it work kind of like interplay.
Yeah. So I'll do the summary for the last issue really quick. Spawn number 131. Spawn and Twitch find Maximilian Twitch. Maximilian Twitch. Maximilian Williams. Spawn and Twitch find Max in a house along with 7 other ghosts after being shot by Sally, one of the little tiny baby ghosts. Twitch offers his life force to Max. Max refuses to let his father go toward the light. Spawn fights off a demon who claims that the ghost occupants of the house are its food. Spawn finally sends the demon back to hell and uses his hellborn power to revive a near-death Twitch. Second time that's happened.
Yeah.
And so we open somewhere else entirely with a sort of masterpiece theater Alfred Hitchcock clown. We did it in the opening.
Yeah, he's sitting in a library, sitting in a chair, reading a giant book. Is there a name on the book? I didn't even look. No, there's not.
No.
There are some in the back. There's Dogma, Boof, Bible, The Cat in the Hat, which is very large, Lassie, which is 3 times as thick as the Bible. There's a lot of them in there.
He's also
he's kind of drawn like Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah, he's like super jowly. He's got so much jowls.
And he's kind of musing that he's now in this this new place, this library, this elegant place, and he says, if I could change anything, I suppose, and he starts smashing things, I would take a flamethrower to this mother, burn this freaking rat's nest to the goddamn ground. When I was done with that, I'd bend over and drop a hot steaming dump on the charred remains of this miserable little hellhole. Then I'd hike up my britches, turn on my heel, right off into the sunset, and never look back. I know I've said this before in this podcast, but there's very few phrases I hate more than take a dump.
Fair. He doesn't say it, so.
Yeah. Well, he says something about it.
He says drop a hot steaming dump, which you've never
it's
said
all the
you didn't
same
like.
Thing. Oh, okay, fair. You know what, Pierce? Good point.
So where we're at with Clown is that he has sort of become part of Jason Wynn. He recently
he's like his psychic guide or something.
Yeah, he recently has sort of emblazoned Jason Wynn with his sort of clown makeup. I just put my on an audio format. I just put my hand in front of my face.
If I was there, I would have slapped your elbow. No, I would not.
But and Jason has been doing these Wanda murders where he keeps calling escorts and asking that they look a certain way so that they look like Wanda Fitzgerald.
And he calls them Wanda.
Yeah, and he calls them Wanda and he kills them, and then he writes "Where's Wanda" on the wall. So that's been happening. Apparently, he can kind of turn off the clown makeup vibe.
Yeah, it's like, well, what's happening is... So what's happening seems to be that Clown, where he's at now, is inside Jason Wynn's psyche. So he's like a part of Jason Wynn's mind in a way. And he has been manifesting through Jason Wynn. Later he'll say, I needed you because I needed a sturdy pair of hands. And he'll take it a step farther that we'll see. But yeah, it's like the manifestation of the clown possession is like the makeup.
I think that's...
Again, I was just going to say similar to Hellspawn, where Clown manifests in different people.
Right. I was going to say that, and also how Billy Kincaid was jumping as a ghost into sort of different bodies and sort of controlling people and doing things.
And it's demonic possession. It's the oldest trick in the book.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it totally makes sense. So as Clown is sort of like, I want out of here, he's kind of trapped within Jason Wynn, because I think what it is here too is that he doesn't have full control of the body yet. And
right, exactly. And Jason, for those who don't remember, Jason was up until very recently holed up in basically an insane asylum because Spawn had hypnotized him into thinking all of his skin had been removed. And he was recently released because Clown showed up and essentially acted as like the little devil on his shoulder and guided him how to get out of there and get back to his old position of power.
Yeah. Now he's in he's going to be reinstated, but he has to meet with a therapist. And we do a very like post-Sopranos.
Yeah, very Tony Soprano.
Like, you got to do therapy kind of thing.
And he's distracted, and she says, distracted by what? And he says, your unspeakable beauty, doctor. I find it quite disarming. And she straight up just like, cut the crap, dude. It's very funny. Meanwhile, Clown is like mooning him. He's saying like, tell her about the bulge in your pants. Don't be shy. Who's your daddy?
One thing that's really fun about this, so I said this when we did I guess it was a few issues ago, 125, when we did like the Stanley Jack Kirby riff, is like, I've been kind of wanting the book to get like a little weirder, and having a sort of unreal Clown who is like, I mean, this whole sequence where he is pushing himself out of Jason Wynn's ear and like jumping out and like mooning him.
Again,
and, like,
he's basically Drop Dead Fred.
Totally.
He's like Jason's weird, wacky, imaginary friend who's trying to distract him.
But it's a thing. But it's a thing that like superhero comics don't typically do. So it's like fun for the book to take these kinds of swings, and we read a bunch of letters that were like, where's Clown? Where's Violator? Where's Jason Wynn? Where are the big guys? What are they doing? And Holguin, I think, is just like, I don't know, just time together. Better than they were before. Before it was like, Wynn is kind of working for Clown, and that was unclear.
Clown shows up and is like, do this thing, and Wynn's like, I guess. But yeah, so he's taunting Wynn from inside his own mind, trying to get him to tell his therapist about the Wanda murders, and Wynn kind of grimaces through it and is like, I have nothing to say. We cut to Sam, Twitch, and Al, where Sam is kind of like catching up to speed about like, okay, he was dead, then he was undead, then he's alive, and now he's kind of somewhere in the middle. And they got Twitch back, and Twitch was dead, and now Twitch is alive, and Twitch's son is back, and all this stuff. Meanwhile, Twitch is like, look, though, Al, there's something you need to know. He fills him in on the Wanda murders.
This is the first time that Sam, Twitch, and Al have been super aligned.
Right.
Like, it is a little bit of exposition business here, but if you just allow yourself to get through it and just go, they're all on the same page here, then you're good to go. And Sam really being the holdout here because he's been a little bit less involved with Spawn to this point than Twitch has.
They also tell him that Wanda, the actual Wanda, and Terry moved because Terry took a job in California. Probably smart for them, honestly. And Al is like, look, thanks for the info. Somebody just succeeded in getting my attention. And he goes off, and Twitch is like, you'll report back to us, right? And he's like, yeah, sure, I will.
One thing I kind of like, I think one thing that's kind of fun about Al is that he does sort of have like generic action hero in him.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes like his like, somebody just succeeded in getting my attention. Like, okay.
Well, if you think about it, if you really think about it, he comes from the era of the prototypical action hero.
True.
I mean, arguably the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s was like the height of like the Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Van Damme kind of archetype.
Chuck Norris.
And Chuck Norris, great example. Steven Seagal. Because Al was even Special Forces, and like Special Forces through the late 70s and into the early 80s in particular was basically like a fetish almost for like militaria guys, because I'm just looking up the guy's name right now. There is a guy who was basically a grifter who Bo Greitz, Gritz, Bo Greitz, is a grifter who claimed to be like a part of a special forces team from Vietnam, not true, and also claims to have run all these missions looking for POWs and missing in action.
A real Frank Dukes.
In a way, yes. And if you've ever seen the POW MIA merchandise around, and you've ever heard the like stories that like there are hundreds, if not thousands, of missing POWs in Vietnam who never came home, that's not true. There are undoubtedly some people who never came home who were prisoners, but the extent to which it's been mythologized is fake, largely because Bo Greitz was able to get shitloads and piles of money to go on these expeditions to Vietnam. And he claimed that he was like, oh, I found all these people. No evidence that any of them were found. And then a bunch of missions, he was just like, we almost found someone. And it's just a grift. It's crazy. So
Spawn
anyway, but
should have been a canon film.
Absolutely.
So as we move forward, we get this section that is narrated by Clown.
And it's clearly Clown kind of taunting Jason Wynn from inside his head.
And sort of manipulating him further, you know, saying
Don't love this page. I'm just going to say right now, the way it's organized, I get what it's doing, but you can read it in like 3 different ways, and it's hard to tell which one's exactly right because they kind of, on some level, all sort of make sense.
I think it's a rare miss by Orzechowski. I think also, though, that Orzechowski is doing the best he can with the panel layouts.
Yes, the panel layout is a big part of the issue.
I know that, like, I get everything that's happening here. Basically, what's happening is that there is a woman who looks like Wanda that now Jason is no longer just calling escorts. He is finding these women, and
finding
he
women on the
is
street.
stalking them, and then he is going to kill them. And so he sees this woman, and we see how Clown has been daring him essentially to commit these murders. And I hate the last 3 panels where he's following. I get it, but it's this weird thing where I don't think
I don't hate the panels. I don't hate the storytelling of those 3 panels, but I think the overall layout of the page is just kind of hard to follow.
I don't know that any woman is dressing like Sabretooth in the 1990s X-Men cartoon and having
she's wearing a long coat is what it is.
I know,
Is that
but
she's
it's just a weird.
I mean, I'll say this, my ex-wife was certainly wearing like fur-lined coats at that time. So anyway,
it took me a little while on that one.
It does look like she's wearing just a fur collar and like fur boots.
Yeah.
But I think it's to like top and bottom of the jacket.
Anyway, I'm going to go further and say that I don't love the next double page spread. I don't think
I was about to say the same thing. I think it has a lot of the same problems.
I don't think it's bad. I think it's kind of interesting. I kind of see what they're trying to do in terms of having.
Artistically, I like the drawing. I love the drawing of Spawn. I like the fly flying around as Spawn is basically trying to do his thing and figure out where the Wanda murderer is going to strike next.
I don't really love the overlay of the building lights, like the building windows on his mask. I get what it's going for. I think it is too busy. I would have liked less lines. There's a lot of lines. I mean, we're out of the 90s, but Angel Medina sometimes, and he's extremely talented, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him here.
Well, sometimes he gets real fine with the details and the lines, and I get what they're going for. Again, like you said, with the that's a very Spawn the animated series kind of feel to me.
Yeah,
like the lights cast over it. It's just not rendered in a way that really is as striking as it is busy.
Agreed. And so we follow up with Jason Wynn's stalking of this woman via the fly. The fly ends up in that. Again, that's a weird. I'm not going to get into that too much. I don't think that the fly should have been the thing carrying us through this, but that's fine. The woman that he's following says, don't hurt me, please. Don't hurt me. I'm pregnant, please. And Jason has. This is what's a little unclear is like he was following her. Okay, did he now take her up into a half-built building, like into a construction site?
It seems like he probably did. She's tied up in a wheelbarrow. I mean, I don't need the moment of her being captured to understand what happened. Like the implication is
I think only if we had just seen him grab her, I would have been like, got it. Like,
I mean, I kind of got what was happening. I think it's the inconsistency of the storytelling of the last 3 pages that makes it okay, they did try and establish this, but it didn't quite have the impact they wanted.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the dialogue here is very edgelord.
Pretty much sucks.
Jason Wynn uses some slurs. He says some really horrifying stuff about this poor woman's unborn baby. He says he's going to use all these chainsaws and power tools and
the clown mask is kind of back as well. Like the clown face paint is kind of back. So we are
clown is taunting him, and he says to the girl, "Ignore him," and she's like, "Ignore who?"
Yeah. So we're to understand that clown's power is sort of diminished at this point. That he's in there, but he's not in control, but he's got a large amount of influence.
Right.
And Clown even says, Christ, Jason, you're boring me to tears over here. You got to be the lamest serial killer in history.
Yeah, Jason taunts the poor woman some more. He says, "Say your mind, bitch." And I love this next page. He's like, "Say your mind, bitch." And then Spawn from off panel, "Fine." And you see Spawn's
pretty
little
cool
mask reflected in Jason's eye. Then we get this sick spread of Spawn busting in with flies buzzing everywhere, the chains flying. Spawn goes, "You're mine, bitch." I loved that turnaround. That was great.
Yeah, that one rolls.
And this double page spread works great.
Yep, super cool. Super cool, and also we get a really important story moment here where Spawn reveals to Jason that he is Al Simmons.
Yes, that is what happens next. And he's like, "Wynn, you're behind this? I thought I was done with you." And Clown's trying to get him to fight back, and Al is like, look, I could kill you, and I should kill you. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to humiliate you by making sure everyone knows you did this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make sure that you get blamed for all of it, and that the only thing anyone remembers you as is a degenerate freak murderer. So just as Jason Wynn is kind of like about to like kind of lose it, Clown is saying, try begging, plead for your life. And Jason Wynn does. And Wynn tries offering him information, and Spawn's like, I don't give a shit. I actually don't give a shit where Wanda lives now. I don't care who killed me. I just want to be done with you.
I have a question for you. Why is Clown like Max Mercury?
Because he's trying to be like, go fast, get out of here.
Is that all it is?
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was like, because I'm not as much a DC person as I am a Marvel person.
I think it's just like not the Flash, not technically Max Mercury so much as like meant to be like recognizably a Flash-like character without being actually the Flash. And it's in clown colors, you know.
Okay. I just because Max Mercury is usually blue. So that's why I was like, oh.
Yeah, he's got a red mask and everything. I think this is just meant to be like a off-brand, like Flash kind of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, right, because he wants him to escape. Okay, cool. Thank you so much, because I didn't know what we were doing there. But it's actually kind of a distracting reference if you're us, I suppose.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things that you either see it and you're like, okay, just a visual gag, or you see it and you go like, is there something deeper here? Just because like it has,
or you see it and you have no idea what it is, and so then you're just like, whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, I think he's just saying like, get out of here. Jason runs and he gets stuck on the ledge. He slips and falls and he's hanging by his hands, and it's starting to rain. And Clown says, the thing is, Jay, he calls him Jay, relationships, they have their limitations. You are good for a couple of laughs, but in the end, you're a disappointment. I needed a pair of hands, and since your head was vacant as an empty lot, I thought I'd move in. But I think it's time I took a more hands-on approach. Executive decision. You understand. And he jumps on Jason Wynn's feet, presumably like psychologically forcing him to let go, and Wynn falls to the ground, broken and battered. And
the thing that's a little inconsistent here is like, so Clown can do that?
Well,
or is the implication that he made him let go?
Yes, I think it is the latter, that he like psychologically influenced him to let go, and it was expressed by him jumping on his hands.
Okay.
I think, yeah, you get it. Everybody gets it. But as Spawn looks over the edge, the woman that he saves is like, oh my God, you saved me. And she says, who should I tell him help me? And he says, no one. So down below, Jason Wynn, I love this series of
rules
panels of him pulling himself back together and like stitching up his bones and like snapping into place.
Yeah, it was great.
And there's two night people who we haven't seen in a long time, just two generic night people. And he says, what's the matter, fellas? Never seen a clown before. And now Jason Wynn is fully taking on the look of the clown.
Yeah.
His jaw is getting long and distended. His belly has gotten bigger and bigger. And
I love this rat in the foreground too. The red rat.
Yeah. Creepy.
Rules.
Plague rat. Yeah. Red Rat. My favorite superhero. Well, Pierce, that brings us to the end of the issue, which ends on that splash page of Jason Wynn as the clown. Or the clown now piloting Jason Wynn's body. And it kind of, you get the impression that he could inhabit Jason Wynn's body while Jason was still alive, but he couldn't take it over without
him dying.
Technically dying.
Yeah. Quote unquote.
So hit me with those credits.
One thing I forgot to mention in the credits for the last one, dedicated to Fred Wagenhals.
Oh, okay, great. Well, we all know who that is, the legendary Fred Wagenhals.
Yeah, he was the chairman and CEO of Action Performance.
Well, of course.
A company that collaborated with Todd McFarlane and his company, McFarlane Toys, to produce NASCAR figures.
That's great. How about that? As we all know.
Right. No, common knowledge, but I figured it was worth pointing out.
Yeah.
So
I think we all assumed it was dedicated to him, but it's good you clarified.
Great. I'm going to get to Spawn number 133, which has the exact same credit, so I'm not going to read them all again. This is called Gentleman Caller and is dedicated to Michael Hadley.
Okay.
Michael Hadley, looked him up. The most famous Michael Hadley is an actor, and I have no idea what he has to do with Todd McFarlane, but maybe they were just friends. Notably, the last guy, Fred Wagenhals or Wagenhollen or whatever his name was, from Arizona, from Scottsdale, Arizona. So,
okay.
Todd lives in Arizona. Not to dox him, but so I imagine that so many of these people are just people he is around.
Yeah. So, Gentleman Caller. Spawn is standing up on a church, as he often does. This angle and perspective of this splash page is interesting, where you see his eyes kind of like peeking out over his head.
I don't
Not the
love
best
it.
Spawn splash page.
I don't love
it.
it.
Yeah, the position of his head is the weirdest part. It says Spawn is kind of just like trying to figure out what's going on with Wynn. He says it just doesn't add up. I'm missing something. We get the impression that Spawn didn't realize that Wynn came back as Clown. He says, I can't shake the feeling that I've been played, that someone somewhere is laughing at me. We get these kind of cool shots of Clown's face, like melding with the night sky. Works really well.
Second page rules. The first page, boring to me, mostly because there are enough opening splash pages by Capullo and even McFarlane that I'm like, that looks cool. And this feels like high school kid wanted to draw one of those because
it's less
just because and I like Medina a lot, and I that sounded very mean, but
no, but it feels less like a poster that you want to hang on your wall.
Yeah, and also it just feels like, okay, I have a lot of narration to get through, and I also don't think the narration's particularly good because we could have a scene kind of tell us some of this stuff. And also we know that Spawn is troubled. I don't need I am troubled.
Right. Well, he's kind of looking for Clown, trying to use his evil sensing powers to figure out where the missing piece of the Jason Wynn Wanda murders puzzle is, that being Clown's influence.
Right.
And now Spawn must have noticed Clown's makeup on Jason Wynn's face. I'm surprised he didn't say anything about it.
No, because the makeup's not there when Spawn confronts him.
That's right. You're right. It's faded by then. My bad. Yes, but as he's scanning the night, we get this image of Clown giving him the finger. As he's like, I can't find it. It feels like he's taunting me with his presence.
One thing that's really interesting is that Nyx shows up, and as Spawn is sort of lurking and trying to throw his evil sense out into the world to figure things out more. One thing I really noticed is that Danny Miki inking Angel Medina really gets him much closer to Capullo.
Yeah. Well, there's that continuity.
Yeah, I mean, it's partly continuity, but it's it put me in a spot where I was like, oh boy, do these characters look this way because Danny Miki wants them to look this way, or because she looks much more like a Greg Capullo character than I would think.
Yeah, she does have a very Greg Capullo type look. I mean, I think it's some of both. I'm sure it's some of Danny Miki being like, I'm just going to ink this.
Yeah.
But I would assume that, Miki's being fairly faithful to Medina's lines. Yeah, Nyx is like, you've been up here for hours. You should go inside and get some sleep. And Spawn is like, there's something out there. I'm not going to bed I'm not going inside until I figure out what it is. And she says, you're weak and tired. At least rest the human part of you. You'll get a fresh perspective. And she says, "You're right," or he says, "You're right. I should go inside and get some rest." I want to say I. Oh yeah, okay. So that's interesting. She is like holding the thread. That's like a piece of the.
Well, we don't know what it is, but we've been kind of thinking that it is a little piece of Spawn. Now,
Yeah,
previously it was black, but that could have just been that it's in shadow. Now
yeah.
it
It could
is
just be the way it's
now it
colored.
is red, which like I'm like maybe it is a thread of the cape, right? That would make
Yeah, or something like
sense.
that. Yeah, but she's kind of using it like Aunt Gladys from Weapons, and you get the impression that she's using it to influence Al to go inside and go to sleep.
Yeah.
Um, Meanwhile, down below in the alley. Oh yeah, what I was gonna say about Nyx is I like that she gives Al someone human to talk to who's not necessarily part of like the case or whatever. Like it's cool that he's got Sam and Twitch as more direct foils now, but like we haven't had Bobby and Bootsy and the Night People in so long that like that is an element that's missing. Now I understand Al is human again, but that makes it even more important to me that he does have this like human person in his life
Well, and
to
especially
kind
with
of
Terry and Wanda leaving the book essentially because they moved away.
right,
We do
right.
need more of that element to exist. I think we've called this out in this book before that either it has to go fully supernatural for us to just be like, yeah, cool, demons, angels, God, green world, cool, we'll just
Yeah.
get into it, that's fine. Or and Angela, despite not being human, does add that kind of humanity to
Spawn
those
needs a
stories.
foil that gives him the perspective of not being an undead ghoul.
Exactly, right? And I think that that's true of so many. When we think about great characters that are something that Spawn is drafting off of, obviously, but also that like, and even characters that have drafted off Spawn in some way in the years since, right? We're thinking of like our Ghost Riders. Obviously, Ghost Rider always has like a girlfriend, or in the case of like Robbie Reyes, has like a little brother.
Right.
Swamp Thing is a great example of this, where like
There's a human
Abigail
tie
Arcane,
that keeps them like grounded on some
right,
level.
and uh, not as supernatural necessarily, but definitely sci-fi and kind of fantasy. Doctor Who is a great example of this, where you have this like
Right. The companion.
yeah, you have this extra dimensional being that needs this like human tether to be able to have stories
Right.
have meaning to an audience, because otherwise it is actually interesting. I think the one character that gets kind of the most shit for this is Superman. Despite the fact that Superman is constantly surrounded by humans, I do think that many readers or watchers, I guess, if they're just fans of the movies, many fans, or I guess many non-fans specifically, because I think fans don't really have this problem, but people who are like, I don't really like Superman. He doesn't feel like
They think he's so invincible that nothing hurts him. He has no
right.
challenges. There's no stakes. But yeah, no, it's not. If you actually read and pay attention to his great stories, that's not really a factor.
Yeah, and
So,
Batman's kind of the same way too, where you would think like, well, this guy's so uh, disconnected from everything, and it's like, okay, but hold on, his Robin is like his son. All of his Robins are like his sons. Alfred is
well,
there. You know, you got it
that's why Batman and Robin work so well together to begin with,
right.
is that you have that youthful foil of like someone who's not a grim, like, anyway. Down below in the streets, in the alleys, there are night people talking, or I guess they're drug dealers. One of them has so many like piercings in his face. He's got like
The screw through his
bolts
nose
coming
is
out of,
killing me.
yeah. He's got a bolt coming out of his head, like the top of his head. Anyway, they're arguing about whether Jimmy Page or Richie Blackmore is a better guitarist. And I'll say this: I love the guitar playing of both artists. Richie Blackmore, of course, from Deep Purple, Rainbow. Richie Blackmore's Night, I think is what it's called. Um, and of course Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. Both great guitarists, both musicians whose music I love to play and listen to. I don't think that Richie Blackmore ever held a teenage girl hostage at his estate for like months or years.
Well,
as a,
inconclusive.
But Jimmy Page did. Jimmy Page did do that. So just we're going on who's better.
Well, what I'll say
Also,
is, you could just not listen to Led Zeppelin or Deep Purple, and you'd be okay.
yeah, I mean, Deep Purple's all right, but I'll tell you this, okay? Richie Blackmore could have been in Led Zeppelin.
Sure.
But Jimmy Page could not have been in Rainbow.
All right. That's like a weirdly like an era of music that it bounces off me a little bit.
Oh man,
even
that's where I
though
live most of the time.
Even like if I'm gonna pick a band of that era, like I like Black Sabbath, but
Sabbath rules.
But also, I was kind of the thing in the 70s that really grabbed my attention more than anything was the Ramones. And so
the best rock and roll band of all time, period.
But that made me it made me so anti the thing that they were playing against, kind of, that like I didn't really like love the Almost Famous like Stillwater type sort of
music's kind of boring to me, but like if you're talking about Rainbow as a fucking sick house metal band fronted by Ronnie James Dio, that I highly recommend anyone listen to.
But even Dio, I don't know.
Dio is the best metal singer who ever lived, period.
Right.
And no one will ever do it better than him in terms of like just his range, his power, his performance. I don't know. I understand not getting into that stuff, but like
it's weird because I think I have gotten into bands after the fact that are very influenced by that stuff, but I just don't. I just bounce off.
That's how it was for me for a long time. It took me a long time to work my way back to those classics.
Maybe I just got to sit.
I bounce off a lot of the more modern shit at this point.
I got to sit down with it. That's what it comes down to. Is I just got to like force myself to sit down with it.
Early recommendation, listeners. The album Rainbow by Rainbow fucking rules. I highly recommend it. It's Dio and Richie Blackmore at the height of their powers, making music about fucking wizards and aliens and like crazy fantasy shit. And then I also recommend the album Heaven and Hell by Black Sabbath, which is their first album with Dio as their singer. That album is one of the greatest metal records of all time and highly underrated by fans of the Ozzy era of Black Sabbath. Also good, but it is a fantastic album. If you want to get into some cool shit, check if you put on Heaven and Hell and you're not pumped by the end of Neon Nights, I'll be shocked.
That's like the best sentence you've ever said.
Yeah.
All right.
I know.
Cool. Well, listen, I'm going to listen to it and I'll report back.
Yeah, let me know what you think. Early recommendation. Anyway, down in the alley, Clown / Jason Wynn, who is looking ever more like Clown. His gut is getting bigger. His hair is getting into that weird, like kind of curly clown shape. He comes up and starts taunting these guys, saying, "Hey, did you ever hear the one about the dyslexic insomniac agnostic? He'd stay awake every night wondering whether or not there's a dog." That's from a movie, and I can't remember what it's from, but it seems like maybe even a Kevin Smith thing or something.
It does feel like that.
I will say I do kind of relate to it somewhat because I am a non-binary, polyamorous, bisexual person with ADHD. So you're going to have to pick the restaurant. So, he's like, "Dog, hello, it's a joke. Get it?" And he turns into the Violator. Violator's back. Love this double page spread of the guy with the bolt coming out of the top of his head, shooting at at Violator as his mouth like kind of splits open. This panel of him standing there on the next page while they're going, "Shoot it, shoot it," where it looks almost like a Looney Tunes character. Like Medina just stretches the absurdity of Violator's proportions to the absolute limit. And it fucking looks awesome. It looks so great. Meanwhile, Violator spears Rex, one of the two, the guy with the bolt sticking out of his head, spears him on his horn, and as he's begging for his life, swallows him whole. And when he opens his mouth here, I love the way Medina draws the inside of Violator's mouth as this like swirling vortex of flesh, also really reminiscent of how Ashley Wood drew it in
Yeah.
Hellspawn. Ashley Wood's Violator, so sick.
Yeah, I called it out earlier, but I think the collaboration is so clear here. I don't love the storytelling between like on that page. I think it's like a little bit confusing if you don't really take the time to look at it. And a
Yeah.
lot of the issues been pretty fast and pretty easy to read. That saying, I guess, if the instruction is like guy gets sucked into Violator's vortex neck or whatever.
Yeah, the
It's
smaller panels as it goes on are kind
because
of just nebulous.
well, it's also unclear if like are the bullet holes opening up the the vortex and then like he's getting sucked into it because of that. Like I don't know.
No, I think that's just what his mouth is supposed to look like inside, but we've never seen it rendered that way before.
Agreed.
That's the first time we've seen it that way.
Yeah, I mean, you end up understanding what happens exactly by the next panel, which is that big crunch, which some great lettering there, and also very much like Jurassic Park esque, like T-Rex kind of thing, which is super fucking cool.
Speaking of Rex, he spits out Rex's head. The eyeball pops out, and the other guy is like, "Oh God, Rex!" He's wearing a shirt that says 60 cent.
Shout out to a Queens legend.
Yeah,
but also an asshole.
Yeah, is he from Queens? 50 Cent?
Yes, he is.
I thought he was from Michigan. Did he move
he's from
to
Queens,
Michigan?
baby.
Why did I think he was from Michigan?
I don't know, but he's from Queens.
But
unfortunately, he's super into. Oh no! Eminem put him on. So
yeah, I guess that's why I thought that he was like
Eminem and Dr. Dre put him on, but no, he's from Queens. But fuck 50 Cent. He's a piece of loves shit. Donald Trump.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. So the guy who just got eaten is Rex, but Clown starts calling his pal Rex because he's like, I don't care who you are. Puts his hand on him and basically makes him his mind slave. Gives him the mark of the clown. I love the panel of Clown putting the mark on his face with all the energy swirling around. Inking in colors there, working really, really well in tandem. It's just one of those small panels that you look at and you go, oh, that looks fucking great. They nailed that little bit.
Yeah. I really like the sort of neon element to the colors there.
And I love the brighter, like lighter kind of highlight color follows the speed lines.
Yeah.
Like it kind of fades with it, just makes a great look. It's a very like almost like Jim Starlin-y kind of like cosmic look.
And I love here when Rex, quote unquote, kind of post I guess branding, right? That's essentially what it is. Kind of like looks up and he says, haha, I get it now, dog. That's funny. And as he looks up, we see the clown makeup now on his face. And we're like, oh shit, this is a power the Violator has now, is like he can have acolytes.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Again, kind of similar to Kincaid.
Yes.
That's like a power of malevolent beings that we've seen established. So back inside, Nix and Al are laying in bed, and it's unclear whether they've been like intimate or if they're just sharing a bed right now. She's tracing her fingers over Al's chest and saying, like, what are you still hiding from me? And then she says, he's right, though. There is something out there. She does a little ritual. She says, I'll find out. Says, I can feel it too, but he's not going to find it. He still lacks the proper discipline. It takes patience and focus and stillness. And she does a little incantation, and drops some blood into a chalice, stirs it up, and she's talking about the male and the female principle. Again, what she's saying here that like the male energy represents power and strength, the female side embodies wisdom. This is all very neo-pagan, down to the like atham and chalice, atham or dagger, which in some traditions, especially in modern like pagan or Wiccan or like esoteric traditions, those are considered a phallic object and a yonic object. So one of the primary uses symbolically will be like putting your atham in your chalice or your wand or whatever, because it's a joining of male and female energies. And I personally don't love the quote unquote male female dichotomy. I get why, because it is like,
you know
phallic,
what? I
yonic,
also
whatever.
don't love it. And I read this and I was like, ugh, brother. Or
Well, part of the
sister,
reason, or a sibling.
Yeah.
Part of the reason it reads as so like passe now is also because a lot of the like divine feminine kind of like moon sister thing has been co-opted by like weird new age turfs. So like there's an element of that where it's like, okay, we've heard the like male and female energy thing used by grifters so much now that it's also, another part of it is that much like many of these little like, oh, white people magic traditions, it's sold as something that's like, oh, that's like an immutable part of spirituality, when in fact what we know about a lot of like actual ancient beliefs about like the beings that they sort of worshipped or believed in or felt inhabited the unseen realms, so they're very fluid, in most cases very fluid with gender and roles and identity, and oftentimes would kind of flow through some of those things. So the idea that there's this intrinsic male female thing, I don't know, just ranting about the same shit we always rant about
Of
now.
course, but the other thing too is that I think what this is really trying to do, and I don't think that it's trying to be like a gender studies class.
No, I think it's just trying to use some of the elements that are common in the books and like the idea. It's trying to seem authentic to that idea.
I think in this case, though, it's also, while trying to be authentic, it is also trying to establish an interesting, and I think this is what's interesting. It is trying to establish a good and evil dynamic.
Right.
And I think in this case, and we'll get into why I think that in just a page or two, but I do think that like right now we see Al as good born from evil, right?
Right.
And we see Nyx kind of neutral, arguably good.
Yeah.
And also her sort of magic and her connection as sort of neutral because we're not sure what to think about it.
Right.
And the book is, in as few words as it can, try, and also I guess like the green world plays into this a little bit, and some of like Angela and like heaven plays into this, and God, but like in this case I do think it's trying to do a little bit of a shorthand of like male. So it says like I think I'll just read this just so people know what we're talking about in case they haven't read the issue, but it says nature thrives on balance, dark and light, male and female. The male principle embodies strength and the female embodies wisdom. Only together is there true power. It is the duty of wisdom to manipulate strength, to use it well, to temper it to better purpose. I let my mind slip away, slide edgewise through the gap between thought and action. Let the night move through me as I move through it. I have faith my wanderings will lead me precisely to where I need to go.
And then she winds up where else but in the company of Memnon. And therein he's got like his little, almost like a sanctum sanctorum here in a way, with full of like artifacts and maps and books, and it's even got the big like weird windows. And he says, "Dear girl, please come in. It's time you and I had a little talk." Meanwhile, back in the alleys, Clown is lounging and looking at like the cut off head of a person that he slew, while his little mind slave, Rex, quote unquote, is spray painting something on the wall. He asks Rex for his cell phone, and he calls Jason's boss, presumably speaking in Jason's voice, or rather his secretary. Calls Jason's secretary and is basically like, "Hey, yeah, I took a fall. I can't make it in. Let everybody know, and also let everyone know that I fuck pastries. Tell everybody in the office and make sure they all know that I have sex with pastries." This would have been just shortly after American Pie.
I think where Clown is Spawn's throne.
Yes, that is where he is. You're right.
And what's really fun is right underneath the skull he's holding is the stack of donuts he has.
Yes. Just a huge stack of donuts. And we see like the Dunkin' Donuts over there.
Yep.
All this coffee. He's just living on coffee and donuts, just like me and Homer.
Dough.
Yeah, he's fucking the pastries. Meanwhile, he hangs up the phone, gives it back to Rex, and he says, well, starting to feel like home already, as he looks at what Rex has been painting. And what should it be except that in the place where Spawn once burned his sigil, these alleys belong to Spawn. He has painted over, so it now says these alleys belong to Clown. Back with Memon, he's reading Nyx for filth. He's basically saying, I've been watching you. I'm impressed, and I believe that there's a lot we can offer each other. And she says, I know better than to make deals with someone who enters dreams uninvited. He says, I thought I was invited. He explains to her, he says, I know your real name is Carrie Ann. You grew up on Long Island. Your mother died when you were 2. You have no siblings. He goes on to say, like, you've been doing magic since you were a kid, even though you didn't always know it. You had a little coven with 2 of your friends, Lily and Thea. Lily got bored with it, but Thea wound up falling into drugs and dying in pain on the street. Now, we met Thea before.
We did. We met her in Spawn number 102. And in that, we knew that she was being manipulated by Maman, but we thought that Spawn was not able to save her. The way that story is presented.
The way it's presented is that Memon is taunting this girl, saying, someone's out to get you. Come to me and I'll help you. Spawn is chasing her. But what's actually happening, according to Spawn, is he's trying to save her from Memon.
Right.
Memon tricks her into taking her own life.
But what we find here is that Memon is, and actually I think it's actually a really good turn. Now, issue
he
1
kind of shows, first off, he shows her Thea's soul.
Yeah.
He has Thea's soul.
But what I was going to say is just like, this issue comes out 2.5 years later than issue 102. You might lose a lot of readers in that time.
Yeah.
You know? And so this is what's really tough is like in the aftermath of 102, or 100 rather, people are reading number 102 of Spawn, I have no doubt. But 133, they're probably reading less. So it's a weird payoff, but if you stuck around, it kind of fucking rules.
I also think it works on its own without knowing the Easter egg. You can just know this is your friend. But knowing the history is important because also he taunts Nyx by saying the thing that she was afraid of is sleeping in your bed right now, and turns himself into Spawn. Now, this gives the implication that Spawn might never have been involved in the whole thing. It could have been Memon being
That's treacherous. What I took away from it, is that Spawn was not involved in that issue at all.
I think that's maybe a bridge too far just yet.
Really?
I think here he's trying to just show Nyx, like, the thing that Spawn is hiding from you is that he's responsible for your friend's death. I think he's still trying to pin it on Spawn. And I don't know. I just think it's too early to say whether he's, like, showing Nyx something or showing the reader something.
I think the reason that I was like, oh, fuck, he lied back in 102. I mean, it might essentially be a retcon, right?
It might be. But
it might be.
I'm not prepared to make that leap yet.
Personally. No. I'm not saying that either. But what I kind of, I think the reason I like that is because we've talked a little bit about every time there are issues that like barely involve Spawn.
Right.
And this is a really fun way to be like, to let Mammon be the puppet master a little bit.
Well, and even still, he still is. Like, he still, whether he embodied Spawn in that moment or not, he still used Spawn as the tool of manipulation.
Yeah.
And Thea died thinking that Spawn was trying to do her harm.
Yeah, but then, but here, this now sets Nyx on a different path.
Right. Well, now he's using Spawn the same way to say, like, you need to be afraid of this person. You also need to get revenge for your friend Thea. And if you do what I say, you just, we can make a bargain. And she says, I don't trust you. And he says, I don't need you to trust me. I just need you to do what I say. You'll come around to my way of thinking in the end. They always do. Give me a call when you've made up your mind. And she kind of fades back into consciousness, sitting in her circle of candles. She looks down into her chalice where she had the vision, and she says, No, Thea, it can't be. I'm so sorry. And that's where the issue ends.
Well, and also the circular chalice says Mammon.
So it does. I was looking at it trying to figure out, like, if it specifically.
Yeah, it says Mammon.
It sure does, in like a very kind of like black metal kind of like.
Super cool. Super cool. I don't have back matter for these, so we can just get right into final thoughts. I like these two issues quite a bit, actually. I don't love the art in a few spots, but on the whole, I think that this puts a lot of chess pieces back on the board. That feels like something I've said a lot in these issues, is that like I really like when the book acknowledges itself almost and its own history.
Well, it feels like the story is kind of progressing in a natural way.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, now we're bringing in these elements or making these connections. As we always say, it's very Claremontian.
Yeah.
And in a way, it's very Simonsonian or Nocentian.
Sure.
In the fact that they were very often responsible for being like, hey, Chris, remember when you introduced this guy?
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, no, I agree, and I think it's interesting that like maybe there aren't specific direct retcons, but there are still questions that are raised here that make you ask about the bigger implications of some of the things that we've seen even in the last like 25 30 issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said retcon earlier, and I didn't really mean retcon. It's kind of a yes and more than it is an actual retcon.
I think those are the best, like, quote unquote retcons, is when you find that continuity thing and be like, here's how I'm going to bring the story forward. I don't always love super continuity heavy, like where continuity takes the place of story, but I like it where continuity, like a bit of continuity, can be the driver of a story.
I agree. I think that continuity is a building block for something memorable. And I've said this on this podcast before, that Hickman's sort of approach to continuity is what I truly believe, which is continuity are the stories that people remember.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the Thea story, not super memorable.
Right.
However,
but I also think it works as a motivation for Nyx, even if you don't necessarily remember that.
Sure, but now it ties that story back into Nyx, who is going to be a character who matters moving forward.
Right.
So that is a plus. And also, it is retroactive continuity in the sense that we are just calling back to something and being like, yeah, that matters to this. But it is building, and it's building up multiple characters at the same time. And when that happens, that's
well, it's not a retcon in the sense of like, okay, there's that, what is it, a John Byrne issue of Fantastic Four? I think it is, maybe Marv Wolfman, where the Inhumans tell Ben Grimm that Lockjaw is not a dog, but like a person
that
who's
turned into a dog because of the Terrigen
which then
Mists.
later another writer had to be like, oh, we were actually just fucking with you, he's a dog, which is also which is a funny retcon. It's also a fucking hilarious practical joke to play on Ben Grimm.
True retcons that are not just what, like, true retcons completely disregard the past,
right? They say it
rather than build on it.
They say it didn't happen.
They contradict in some way. Or
and there's so many. We can all think of the worst examples of retcons. The whole Gwen Stacy having kids with Norman Osborn.
That was came a retcon up in my feed today. Weirdly.
That later had to be retconned. Nick Spencer, love him or hate him, fully retconned that to be like, that was bullshit. That was clones.
He tried to get me fired once, so.
Well, you know what? I'm not saying he's a good guy. I'm just saying, love him or hate him, he did that. He also tried to run as like the reactionary mayor of fucking Cleveland or some shit. So
I'm going to say this in defense of Nick Spencer. I do think he was given a pretty raw deal.
It was a shit sandwich, the whole thing, and I understand how it got there.
Yeah, in the sense that for people who don't know, like Rick Remender was on Captain America. He did this whole Dimension Z thing, and then he pretty unceremoniously like left the company.
He set up the idea that Hydra had infiltrated everything.
Right. He basically, he did the thing that we saw in the movies.
Yeah,
in Winter Soldier.
It was in the first run of Sam Wilson, Captain America.
Right.
I think it's Misty Knight. It's like, you got Hydra.
Yeah.
Up and down.
And then
Nick Spencer came in and had to like figure out what that story
with no notes. Like he was pretty forthcoming about like, oh, I did not get any notes from the outgoing writer, and also the outgoing writer did not super communicate to the current editors what he was planning. So I don't actually know where the story was meant to go. So I'm just going to try and do what I can do.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I don't know.
It is.
I will say, Superior Foes of Spider-Man, one of the best comics.
Also, I very much liked Infinite Vacation with Christian Ward.
Yeah, he's done some fine stuff. So that's not the point. And also, none of that has anything to do with Spawn.
So before we go, George, you have any recommendations for our listeners today?
Yeah, you know what? I got a cute little recommendation for y'all. If you have access to the Marvel and DC apps right now, they just posted little crossover comics this week that are in their like infinite whatever ultimate format, infinity format, where you just scroll. One of them is Flash and Fantastic Four, and the other one on the Marvel side, that's on the DC app, and on the Marvel side is Thor Shazam. And they're both really fun little cute comics. I had a good time digging into them. They're just really quick reads. And you know what? It was nice to read a superhero comic that was just like the Thor Shazam one in particular was very charming. There's like Al Ewing wrote it. There's like a thing where Thor and Billy Batson are like trading magic lightning, and it's just fun. So you know what? I'm just gonna say read those fun little things because I found them delightful.
Hell yeah. That's a really fun one. I have a really quick one. The artist on the book that I'm working on is in a band called Cheap Death.
Nice.
Check them out. Cool punk band here in New York. Get into it.
I will.
So.
Cool.
Well, George, for God so loved the world,
he gave his only begotten Spawn.
See you later, Hellspawn.
Spawnography!
Spawnography is recorded in Athens, Georgia, and Queens, New York. It's produced by me, Pierce Lyden. Our theme music and logo were composed by George Marston. Episodes come out every Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, subscribe. You can find us on social media at Spawnography or at SpawnographyPod. If you'd like to reach out to us directly, you can do so at spawnographypod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, see you later, Hellspawn.